Hello everyone and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to another episode on your favorite football updates channel. I do come to you from Kampala, Uganda. That's where we're stationed to. Welcome to the community, to all our new community members. And today we will be discussing Manchester United versus Arsenal. Not the full preview, but we'll be looking at the two managers between Mike Arteta and Ruben Amorim because they have a lot going for them this season. Mike Arteta is under enormous pressure to deliver his first major title, while Ruben Amorim gets a clean slate to the start of his project, one that is handled for the last 6 months or so. Going into this season, which manager is going to be under more pressure between Ruben Amorim and Mikel Arteta? We are talking about managers that are in charge of gigantic teams in as far as the Premier League is concerned, Europe is concerned, as well as globally. But personally, I do think it's going to be different kinds of pressure for both managers in regards to their roles and responsibilities going into this season. Because when you look at the whole scope of things, is you have Mikel Arteta who has entered his sixth season or the sixth year of his project. It's matured, it's just not yet bared any fruit up until this stage. While on the other side, you have a manager who's just planted a seed for history and we are waiting for it to sprout. Now, the challenge for Ruben Amorim is that if he has a false start to the new Premier League season, then the pressure is going to be on him. I'm not saying it will be more than that of Arteta because whatever the kind of pressure that he will be under, Ruben Amorim, for him, the pressure will be predominantly from perhaps maybe his bosses and the Manchester United fan base, but for Mikel Arteta, it will be predominantly from the Arsenal fan base who believe, who think that this season is a do or die. It's a make or break for Mikel Arteta to deliver a major title. He told us to trust the process. We trusted the process, and now we believe this is the point at which the process is supposed to be coming good. That the process is supposed to deliver the end product. Imagine you're in a sugar factory and you've seen from the point the sugar cane being planted, it's been irrigated, it's grown, it's been now cut and taken to the factory. Now what we are expecting are the sugar crystals. In this case, major trophies. It has to be either the Premier League or the UEFA Champions League. Now, the advantage for Mikel Arteta is that he is well loved and appreciated among his bosses at Arsenal. So whether he comes good on any of those two major titles, I do not think it will decide his future with the club in respect to his bosses. So take an example, let's say Arsenal end the season and they've won the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, and maybe once again they finish second in the Premier League. Maybe they reach the finals or semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. His bosses could look at that as a successful season, but in the eyes of the Arsenal fans, it would have been an under-delivery on the measures upon which the standards he set himself. You finished second for three consecutive seasons. That's 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, and 2024, 2025. The next best thing that you can have is taking them a notch further. Because if the season ends without Mikel Arteta winning a major trophy, either of those two, then it's going to dawn on the Arsenal fans that maybe we have a very good manager, but he's just not good enough in terms of bringing us the silverware. And for all the trust that he's built within the Arsenal fan base, for all the belief that he's brought back within that Arsenal fan base to believe again that they can compete with the best of teams, with the Manchester Cities, with Liverpool. That kind of belief that he's built, that kind of trust he's built within the Arsenal fan base. I believe if it does not achieve any of those two, it will begin to shrink. In any case, it has already started shrinking in some sections, but I think it will go a notch down. Then too, you will have players who start to think to themselves, oh, I'm turning 26, I'm turning 27, I'm turning 25, and yet we've been at, maybe 4 good years at this, and we are yet to come good. Maybe, just maybe, I should start, thinking of my future away from Arsenal, and that is bound to happen. If Arsenal do not win major trophies, they stand the risk of losing some of their key players. And we are talking about players like William Saliba, players like Gabriel Magalhaes, players like Bukayo Saka, Players like Martin Odegaard, players like Declan Rice. Yes, we know they love the club. They love the club to the core. But sometimes you have to acknowledge it's like when you love your own child and then you find out that maybe they are addicted to a drug. As much as you love them, you know they have failed at something and they need treatment. So in this particular case, as much as those players love Mikel Arteta, as much as they love the club, at the end of the day, they are in it to win. And if they do fail to, if they see that it is becoming increasingly unlikely that they will win a major title at Arsenal, then they will start wanting to move away. And in any case, these are players that are sought after by the biggest of clubs in Europe, So, for example, look at a player like William Saliba. He's already being quoted by a club like Real Madrid. Look at Bukayo Saka. He's a player that any club would love to have. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, maybe Barcelona, maybe Manchester United. I'm not saying that Manchester United are currently better than Arsenal, but let's be honest, in all historical context, by leaps and measures, leaps and bounds, Manchester United is a bigger club. That's the honest bit, in terms of pedigree, size of the club, they're a bigger brand. That's the honest bit. That's my opinion about that. So they may want to start to explore their moves away, and you do not want that because then that would set you backwards in terms of that project that you think is on the verge of winning something. So that's the kind of pressure that Mikel Arteta is going to be under, because delivering an FA Cup, a Carabao Cup, will be an underachievement. But at least he needs one. He needs to win either the Premier League title or the Champions League title, and maybe even get himself in the finals of these domestic cups. He ought to be there because winning is a culture, winning is a habit, and you got to start somewhere. Where he did start when he won the FA Cup back in 2020, that was good, but the kind of squad that he did have was not one to sustain that for the foreseeable future. And that's why he went on a rebuild that has taken this long, 5 years, and he's been at it. There are so many positives to take away from this project. But if he does not realize those major titles, then unfortunately for him, it will have been no good. Like William Saliba said, no matter how good you are, if you do not win a major title with this club, you're not going to be remembered. You're not going to be a legend. You will be quickly forgotten. Now, on the side of Ruben Amorim, he's been at the club, I think, since last year in December or something, and he's tried his system, everything, in as far as the Premier League was concerned. It did not work out. It was so horrible. They ended up finishing 15th with what? A 10 goal negative difference, only 44 goals scored, 54 goals conceded. That meant the defense was poor, goalkeeping was poor, midfield was poor. They did not create enough to score many goals, so that's going to be pressure. And guess what? He could not have had it any harder in terms of a Premier League start, in terms of how tough it does come. Because in the opening 6 fixtures for Manchester United, you have to play against Arsenal, you have to play against Manchester City, you have to play against Chelsea within those opening 6 fixtures. And then you look at the other opponents being Fulham, being Burnley, and also Brentford. Now, those are winnable games when you look at that, when you extend it further. But in between, they will have a game against Grimsby. That's in the EFL Cup, the Carabao Cup. The reason as to why it comes this early for Manchester United is because of where they finished in the Premier League last season. So, out of those opening fixtures for Ruben Amorim, how many points can he garner out of that? Because if, for example, let's say he has a horrible start to the season, and let's say he loses to Arsenal, loses to Chelsea, loses to Man City, then drops points against Fulham, maybe wins against Burnley, and wins against Brentford, or drops points there, it's going to be a hot start. It's going to be more pressure on him because question marks will quickly begin to raise. We know that there are already question marks over his name amongst certain sections of the fan base. This has nothing to do with his bosses. His bosses have acknowledged the kind of position the club are in, that they need the rebuild and everything. That's why they are backing him in the transfer window. Brought in Matas Cunha, Brian Mbomo, Benjamin Sesko, very immaculate signings. You never know. They could bring in Carlos Baliba, that they could bring in Gianluigi Donnarumma at this stage. We never know. That's a big if, but at least they've shown intent. They've backed him. They backed him where it's needed the most, where you need, because they need goals, and they've brought in players that are capable of scoring goals, players that are proven of scoring goals in the Premier League, within another prospect in Benjamin Sesko. So, but the amount of pressure will come largely from the Manchester United fan base. If they are not convinced, if they are not feeling that they are making progress in this project, they will grow fed up of Ruben Amorim quite quickly. As we all know, that's the trend of football when it comes to these big teams, even when it comes to small teams. For as long as you have a new manager that's not winning, that's not putting points, and things are not looking positive, there doesn't look to be a light at the end of a dark tunnel, then they are going to give up on you really, really quickly. Just imagine if Manchester United were to lose 4 of their opening 6 fixtures. Now, a lot of fans may look at that and say, okay, it's been a difficult, start to the season, but let's cut him some slack. But if by the time we get to December, Ruben Amorim and Manchester United are well within the bottom half of the table, and by that I mean, maybe 13th and below, then the pressure is going to be really, really on for Ruben Amorim, because then the patience that the club may want to extend him may not be overly stretched, because it can only go so far. I do not think in modern day football there's a lot of managers that are going to get the kind of leeway that Mikel Arteta got when he was into his first full season at Arsenal. Remember, in his first full season, 2020-2021, which was predominantly defined as a COVID-19 season, he finished 8th. There's a time they went in a spell of 10 games. They only won one fixture. That was against Manchester United by goal to nil, a penalty scored by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang at Old Trafford. But all the others were majority losses and a couple of draws in there. So I do not think Ruben Amorim is going to have an olive branch as long as that Mikel Arteta had extended to him. And part of the advantage for Mikel Arteta is that for majority of that season, you did not have fans, in the stadiums. Otherwise, the mood could have been totally different. So, in regards to who is going to be under more pressure, it's different kinds of pressure, but I think both managers are going to be under enormous pressure. For Ruben Amorim, it's to get things right. From what we've seen in preseason during the Premier League summer series over there in the United States, I thought there were some positives to pick up on in regards to how Manchester United play, in regards to how the players were learning the manager system, which is a 3-4-2-1 kind of system. Of course, it could change, but predominantly that's the gist of the system. I thought they pressed well in some cases. I thought their ball recoveries were good, the kinds of chances they were creating. However, it's not to say that it's a perfect system. There's a lot that still needs to be fixed. Then, on the side of Arsenal, it's about titles. It's about winning. It's about getting on to the front foot. It's about being dominant. It's about showing that you can dethrone Liverpool from the crown because they are the reigning champions. It's about showing that Manchester City do not get to bounce back before you win a Premier League title. It's about showing Chelsea that for all the resources they've invested, they do not get to win a major title or a Premier League title before you do. That's the task for Mikel Arteta. Is his squad perfect? It's not perfect, but it is good enough to win, because a winning manager can win titles with that trophy. Go back to teams like Napoli last season. They had a very thin squad, and yet they managed to grind it out to a trophy. Go back to 2015-2016, Leicester City, when they won that Premier League trophy. They didn't have the broadest of squads, but they had the core team that was that good, that came good under Claudio Ranieri. It wasn't the best of players on all fronts. You had players like N'Golo Kante, Riyad Mahrez, Danny Drinkwater, Shinji Okazaki, Jamie Vardy, that cohort of players. They are the most prolific of players, apart from a few outliers. That N'Golo Kante was a standout player. Riyad Mahrez, very, very wonderful career. Of course, Jamie Vardy, very up there with some of the very best strikers. But overall, he won the title with that squad. So of course, there are a few things that have to go your way. Maybe you get a bit lucky when it comes to injuries, but with or without injuries, there shouldn't be any excuse whatsoever for Mikel Arteta this season. So he has to win something. That's the kind of pressure he's going to be under among the Arsenal fan base. However, on the side of Ruben Amorim, it's going to be a different kind of pressure. For Arsenal, the start to the Premier League season is equally that hard, because you have to play against Manchester United, you play Leeds United, you play Liverpool on match day 3, you have Nottingham Forest, you have Manchester City, and then I think you play Newcastle on match day 6. So when you look at those fixtures, they are very, very difficult fixtures. But if you are telling us that you're a title contender and that you are capable of winning it, then you should have no excuses whatsoever to go ahead and win those games, whether it's at home, whether it's away. That's how you show intent going into the season, that you are capable of winning against the big boys and then threaten all the opponents that that come after that. Otherwise, do let me know what your thoughts are about those issues. Ruben Amorim versus Mikel Arteta. Who will be under more pressure? Who do you think will finish where? In my humble opinion, in my season-long predictions, I think Arsenal will win the Premier League title, and I do think Manchester United will finish seventh on the Premier League block, depending on the squads that they currently have. If Manchester United were able to add Carlos Baleba and General Donnarumma, maybe I could change my stance. Maybe they finish a notch higher than seventh. But so far, that's my prediction. If you want a full, a full blown out list of my old Premier League season predictions, go over to the channel under the video sections. You will find that video. It's about 45 minutes. You can get to watch it and hear my thoughts about who will finish well. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed. Do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Bye bye.